everybody, it's Aluna Michaels, Esoteric Astrologer, coming at you to talk about the events of June 2025. And thank you to the guys at Know Thyself Podcast, as usual. Thank you so much for sending people to me. I didn't do a video last month, so we'll talk a little bit about Saturn going into Aries, which happened at the end of May. But we'll start talking about Jupiter going into Cancer. Jupiter changes signs once every 12 months. And so it goes into the same sign once every 12 years. So Jupiter going from Gemini to Cancer. Jupiter's kind of expansive and wonderful wherever it goes. Gemini has a lot to do with your thinking and your intellect and learning, and especially when it's in Gemini. So Jupiter now going into Cancer is much more sort of a wisdom of the gut and sort of a primal caring for others, as opposed to maybe an intellectual empathy, which is Jupiter in Gemini. So there's more of this primal, like wanting to take care, wanting to form groups out of creating safety and community, really having heartfelt connections with people. So I think this is really good for creating more empathy for others in and around us, and the sun, of course, goes into Cancer in late June, and then Mercury's going into Cancer as well. So that's creating more of this heartfeltness, a sense of passion for others, and like wanting to create a safe space for family, kind of idea. But when Jupiter's in Cancer, it's like everyone's family, and you can extend the feeling of family. We are going to have a new moon at the end of the month, so it'll be Sun, Moon, Mercury will be there, and Jupiter all in Cancer. And that's an interesting, when you think about new moon as setting intention and things like that. Another thing I want to emphasize about Jupiter in Cancer is self-care. And Jupiter in Gemini, and I know it well because it's my Jupiter sign, but it's like ideas and thinking and connecting with people and and it's a lot. And it can be very idea driven, which can make you maybe have overly activated nervous system or trouble sleeping, because there's so much interesting things going on, or worrisome things going on, or to figure everything out, And when Jupiter's in Cancer, you can be much more of an emphasis on self-care, caring for others, less worrying maybe, but just like, it's just a sense of taking a breath. You're still doing what needs to be done, but it's from a more sort of grounded place. If Gemini's in the head and Cancer is in the belly, and the wisdom of the belly and your sort of center point, it can really help. Like, you're still doing expansive things, but you're starting from strength. And like a martial art, you don't just punch or do whatever you're doing. You think of the center, and then the strength comes from there. I'm a dancer, so the idea of dancing from the center makes your limbs stronger and more elegant, So that idea of Jupiter going into Cancer, about everything you're doing is more graceful or more solidly centered, And so when we have that new moon at the end of the month, about making promises to yourself or commitments to yourself, about how you're having that idea of creating center, staying in your center, even when you're supporting others, whether it's your family or community or whatever's going on in the world right now, and you want to be of service and help, but you're not losing your grounding, and then when you do feel wobbly, you ground, which is a little hard to do in Jupiter's in Gemini, where you're just staying in your head and you get a little top heavy. Whoa, So, okay, so there's our Jupiter in Cancer. And also, Venus is in Taurus for the month, and a little bit in July. And that also is really grounding and centering. And it can also help you if you have any financial stuff going on. There's something about all those planets converging that way. And I'll throw in, Mars will be going into Virgo. Thank God, Mars is finally changing signs. I mean, it retrograded in Leo, and that whole retrograde pattern was so long, and it retrograded in Leo in early December, and then it went back into Cancer, then it went into Leo. But now to finally, just even leave the sign of Leo and just say, let's just get our Mars totally fresh in Virgo, and then Mars is taking action. Virgo is clear of how you're taking the action, and then the Mars, that like spirit of passion and daring do, is connecting with that heartfelt actions that are balanced within, with all those Cancer planets, and even Venus and Taurus is very grounded. So there's a lot of good things the way all that's converging. But if on a personal level, if it's especially taking care of finances, kind of pulling yourself together about that, about pulling yourself together with your physical health and eating and sleeping and how you nurture yourself, like I said, it's even more like having a plan and sticking to it, you know, and having a loving plan. It's not something you can't live up to or something that's punitive. So that's going to be really good for all those planets to be connecting. So let's talk about Saturn moving into Aries. Now, this is a bigger story here about all this, but Pluto has finally fully moved into Aquarius, so it's in there. All the planets go retrograde and then direct, right? Because of, except for the sun and the moon, it has to do with how we're stationed in the solar system, and, you know, things are revolving around us from our perspective. We don't live on the sun. So it looks like planets are stopping and going backwards and stopping and going forwards. So Neptune went into Aries the very end of March, very early April, and it will retrograde back into Pisces for a little bit and then back into Aries. And then I'll talk about Uranus going into Gemini at the beginning of July. It goes into Gemini, and then it's going to go back into Taurus a little bit, back into Gemini. Those are the three outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto. It's all a big deal when these outer planets are shifting signs. It lets the world expand in different ways. And the fact that the three outer planets are changing signs within a few months of each other is really big. Even if Neptune and Uranus are going to pop back into the previous sign and go forward again in 2026, they'll be in there for good and create these really harmonious connections between those three planets. Also, Saturn being kind of this bridge planet, you know, also changing signs into Aries, the same planet Neptune is in. So there's more harmony with Saturn and Neptune working with Pluto and Uranus, all in this sort of harmonious thing. So Saturn also, it'll be in Aries and it'll go back into Pisces for a minute and back into Aries. But right now it's like, you know, it's in Aries, and it's the beginning of an entire, not just a new sign, but a new solar cycle, a new whole zodiac cycle, right? Because Aries is the first sign. So Saturn too is about, where are we? Where have we been? What are we doing? Let's regroup and move forward, because the Saturn is like figuring out what's worked and what hasn't worked, and Aries is about making positive changes. And when we say that it's also now connecting with Neptune, Neptune is the higher, like Saturn is the duty, do these things because they're right. Neptune is doing things because it's the right thing to do. It's human compassion, it's empathy, you know? And people being able to be more brave, to stand up for what they truly believe in. Whereas Pisces, when they're in Pisces, it can be a little fear-based. Should I not? Or it's more like, or maybe I should. But Aries is like, I'm doing it. I'm listening to my heart. There's also a thing with Pisces that people can be listening to, like, give away their personal power to leadership and just sort of not look at things deeply and just go, okay, they said so, I believe it. Aries is more like, what does my gut say? Something's wrong. I'm going to investigate for myself. I'll be the pioneer myself. I'll look at this myself and make decisions based on whether this feels right or not. Or sometimes the Pisces feels it's too overwhelming. I'll just believe somebody, you know? And even though Neptune and Saturn will pop back into Pisces, it's a wiser thing where it's like, oh, am I being fooled again? Or is this right? I got to really trust myself. So it's once it's been tinged with Aries, it stays there, and it's different when they go back into Pisces. But anyway, so right now with Saturn and Neptune being in Aries, it's like making that commitment to yourself. And it could also be, because Neptune is about spiritual growth, a commitment to meditation, a commitment to, yoga or something like that, or I like qigong, but it's making commitments to yourself and even taking small steps, which is Saturn. Like, you don't have to go like do some crazy yoga classes and sweating. What's the one, Bikram, or learning to be a teacher. It's like, what if you did 10 minutes with the easy yoga on YouTube and just do it every day? It doesn't have to be the best yoga ever done. Or with meditation, maybe just focusing on your breath, for 5 minutes a day. You don't have to go to some 30-day silent retreat at the Buddhist center, So it's like, because Aries wants to do something, but Saturn is like, don't do too much and then just not do it again, which can be a bad part of Aries. So it does help that Saturn sort of balances out the enthusiasm of Aries and says, just do it small and consistent, and you're going to get big results that will be like, woo, results, but you can do it without overwhelming yourself and then burning out, So there's that too. So let's see, what else I want to talk to you about. The Mars going into Virgo, that stays in Virgo until early August. And Mars generally is 2 months, six or 8 weeks in a sign. And Mars is moving fast right now to make up for lost time from the retrograde. But that can be about really looking at your inner critic and picking out particular words. I was just talking with someone who was saying, I'm looking at how often I say just. I just did this, and she underscores her accomplishments from saying just. It's only this, or seeing, with Mars and Virgo, like when you never good enough for yourself. Like you think, oh, that person did that, that's great, but if you did it, it needed to be bigger, better, more, whatever. And to really be praising yourself. And this is really made a lot easier by all those planets being in Cancer, which is like nurturing your inner self and saying it is enough and you can learn and do more later or add to it or whatever it is. But really acknowledging the steps you're taking, the commitments you have, the progress you're making, and the wisdom you've learned and all that. So that helps when Saturn's in Virgo, to look at where you've picked on yourself and stop it. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking now. And let me know if you want a session, 248-583-1663. My number is below in the YouTube if you're looking at that. I don't see a lot of YouTube comments anymore, so better to text me or find me on my website, alunamichaels.com. And I will see you later, and enjoy your June, and bye-bye for now.